What will it take for SADC to bring political tolerance and stability to the mountain kingdom of Lesotho? Why are journalists in Lesotho being harassed for reporting critically about the country's political climate? And is there political will to uphold the freedoms enshrined in the Constitution of Lesotho? How can the SABC ensure that its journalists in Lesotho perform their duties without fear or favor? What time is it? It's question time. Kgotsong and welcome to the show. My name is Paul Sedu. Political analysts differ on whether the military should be blamed for a history of political instability in the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. The tiny southern African country experienced a coup in 1986 led by General Justin Lekhanya. The ensuing power struggle resulted in King Mshweshwe II being exiled in the UK in 1990. Lekhanya was himself deposed in another coup in 1991 led by Colonel Elias Ramayema. Efforts to, or rather entrenching democracy, have posed a challenge through the years. Some political leaders have had to seek political asylum in neighboring South Africa, citing security threats. Leader of the All Basotho Convention, Dade Thomas Thabane, whose wife was killed a few months ago, won the elections in June earlier this year and became the country's new prime minister. This after forming a coalition with smaller parties. Thabane's administration is under the spotlight, though, following reports of harassment, intimidation, and arrests of journalists in the country. We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial is 089-110-4210. And if you are in neighboring countries, more especially Lesotho today, please do give us a call. +2789-110-4210. Our Twitter handle @QuestionTime24. My guest today, Ntakwana Ngatan, is an SABC journalist based in Lesotho. And Shireen Mukadam is a researcher for Amnesty International for Southern Africa. But before we continue with the show, let's take a look at this insert about media freedom in Lesotho. Okay, we don't seem to have that one ready. So we'll go into our show for the day. Let's talk about media freedom in Lesotho. Things are not well that side. So, like I said, the number to dial is 089-110-4210. And hi, Bogagana. +2789-110-4210. How do you feel about freedom of the press, that side? So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, let me start with my colleague. Maybe bias for a sec. You are not here because you love us, you know, you just want to see us and spend some time with us and all that.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
I'm here because over many years, really, I have felt threatened while doing my job, and over the years I have shrugged it off as part of what comes, you know, with the territory. But it gets worse and worse, and it gets personal, and it gets life-threatening. And so in the past couple of months, I've had vitriol, really, on social media that has ended up with people sort of taking it upon themselves to say she should be raped, she should be killed, she should leave our country, and so I did.
Who is saying this to you?
It is people who, I think for the most part now, are supporters, I think, of the ruling regime at this point in time. But it has happened in the past.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
I have received it from supporters in the past of the previous administration, of supporters of the Democratic Congress and the Lesotho Congress for Democracy. And a lot of it, as I say, comes through social media, and it is disheartening and painful.
Look, we're going to take a quick break. Yeah, but please do give us a call. And like I said, please ke a felele Basotho ba khutsi ba ditaba na ba lokulile gore ba itse mosebetsi wa bona ka gana 0891104210 or +278911042110 is the number to dial. We shall return.
The only way to pour the perfect beer, this professional barman would tell you, is into a glass tilted at exactly 45 degrees. Oh, bless you. Bless you, sir. Bless you again. Well, we'd say the perfect way to pour a beer is at this angle, straight into your mouth.
Get a case of 330ml Hansa Pilsner Handies for $189.99 from Tops at Spa.
Fashion influencers are diversifying the industry, leading a fashion revolution like never before.
It's time for us to come together now. What we face is the most significant moment in the history of this subcontinent.
Armstrong uses still with soft drawings and watercolors to create a disruption within the exhibition.
What you see in the show is almost like a snapshot of me as a being in process.
The band's so excited about their latest creation and believe it's their best work yet.
It's a happy album. It's got 8 tracks. First single, which is Nana, in it, and Nana is pumping already.
For your weekly dose of entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today, Ngatan rather, is a colleague of ours. She's a journalist who's normally based in Lesotho, but today she's joining us from studio because she is exiled. Shirin Mukadam is a researcher at the Amnesty International for Southern Africa. But before we continue with the show, let's take a look at this insert.
Pictures of the editor-in-chief of Mo Africa FM, Kendi Ramainwani, being wrestled to the ground by plainclothes policemen began circulating in social media recently. Ramainwani had attended a case on which his station had been temporarily shut down by government for broadcasting inciting statements.
Because before the closure of the parliament, the Prime Minister, Ndate Tabani, had made an announcement in Parliament 2 times, on the 24th and on the 26th, that the police, he was giving the police the latitude to beat suspects whenever they were out of sight. Once they come back to the public, they should stop beating those people and just smile with them as if nothing has happened between them.
The government says it has no interest in censoring media, but will take action if the kingdom's security is at stake.
We pointed out to him what exactly and what specific actions he undertook that we consider to be of a threat to the security of the country.
Okay, well, that's the Minister of Lesotho there, clearly lying, not telling the truth, that they are not suppressing media freedom there, because we now have evidence that they are. But Amnesty International, our colleagues are in trouble there.
Indeed, Mpo. As you've mentioned, Lesotho had snap elections on the 3rd of June, and we saw the inauguration of Thomas Tabani and his coalition government on the 16th of June this year. And really we saw Amnesty International has seen this as an opportunity for the new Lesotho government to demonstrate a clear break from the past. What Amnesty International would like to see is that the new government ensures that human rights forms the foundation upon which policy is developed in the country.
And that but you're wasting time. They have those things.
And not restricted.
They have those things. Documents are there. On paper, everything is okay. All right? You're not going to find Lesotho government guilty on paper because they are compliant. But the problem is in practicality terms. People are being suppressed, radio stations are being shut down for no reason. I mean, earlier this year, we had thought it was Musisidi only. They had shut down radio stations because they thought they were going to promote the agenda of Tom Thabane. Now Thabane is in charge, but the same story continues.
Amnesty International has, as you said, has noticed that there is a spike in human rights violations as a result of the political and security crisis in the country, and this has a historical legacy, as you have mentioned. What we have noticed is that there is a consistent pattern of human rights violations that have been committed with absolute impunity, and some of the human rights violations, including the attack on freedom of expression, include arbitrary arrests of opposition party members, of journalists, and of Lesotho Defence Force members. Between May and June 2015, as you all know, 23 members of the LDF were arrested on charges of mutiny, and despite the Lesotho High Court ruling in October of that year declaring their arrest unlawful, they continued to be held in detention under inhumane conditions until the 1st of March this year, when 5 of them were arrested. We have also documented allegations of torture and other ill treatment of these soldiers. Amnesty International is extremely concerned by the culture of impunity for human rights violations, and this has been demonstrated by the lack of prompt and independent and effective investigations, including into the death of Lieutenant General Maparanku Mahao more than 2 years ago. In June 2015.
I want us to take Yandisa in Midrand, but you must be thinking, how are you going to respond to my question, which is, now that you have recorded all those atrocities, what are you doing? Yandisa? Yandisa, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Paul, man, sorry, man, I don't follow the politics of Lesotho, but I believe, look, I would like to look at this from our perspective as South Africans. What contribution do we continue to make, have we made to Lesotho in trying to bring the crisis to ease? I don't know how your two guests there at studio will feel about it, because I think South Africa should be playing a very huge role in bringing that to an end. But in my honest view, we're trying hard, but we are failing. But more importantly, I think our president, in a way, has let us down, because you remember he has delegated the deputy president to Lesotho, but at the same time, he goes around in public saying that he would like to be succeeded by a female. And now I don't understand how that's supposed to fit with his deputy president. Isn't he? Will he take this role seriously, or he feels like he's just being toyed with? I would like to hear the views of your two guests there at studio. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Dennis. I'll allow you to respond to that. But quickly, you tell me, what are you doing? You have recorded everything. Like I said, you paper-wise, they're compliant. But here you are. You have recorded everything. There are atrocities.
Paper-wise, they are not compliant, actually. And what Amnesty International has done is that we have documented a public statement of a new human rights agenda with clear recommendations to the new Lesotho government of how they can address the past culture for impunity for human rights violations, in terms specifically of the attack on freedom of expression, which we are seeing continuing in Lesotho today, despite the new regime. What Amnesty International is calling for the new authorities is to publicly reaffirm its commitment to respect, protect and fulfill the right to freedom of expression, which includes the right to seek, receive and impart information. We're also calling for prompt investigations into the shooting of Lesotho Times editor Lloyd Mutunga Miri, which took place on the 9th of July last year. More than a year later, we are seeing a lack of justice for this crime.
Yeah, the guy has actually given up on Lesotho. He has even gone home.
Yeah, look, Mpo, I think the biggest thing that the government of Lesotho must do is speak out. It is to speak out against people persecuting journalists because they do it in the name of their leaders. when they insult you. I mean, recently, my foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, covered the recent killing of the army commander in Lesotho. A small mistake, like the number of people that died because news is breaking, it is hot, we are on the story and we're trying to find out what exactly happened. And she got verbal insults, personal insults from Basotho. As a result, she ended up not even going to Lesotho because she felt that, how am I going to be safe? And all she was trying to do was cover the story. So it is not just me. It is not just, I mean, recently we saw supporters of former Prime Minister or former Deputy Prime Minister Muthetjwa Missing Lesotho Congress for Democracy harass journalists at a press conference where the party had called those journalists. And the Journalists Union of Lesotho even issued a statement. Now, you have leaders who will speak out against journalists, and when they get attacked in the public space, they don't speak against the attacks on journalists. So at the end of the day, we are left by ourselves with people who think that freedom of expression should not be respected and the freedom of the media should not be respected in Lesotho.
Why was Ratabane arrested?
We're still waiting to find out, because as far as we know, as the minister has indicated, it was regarding compromising national security. And we had expected that he would be charged, but up to now he hasn't. So we're still waiting for them to tell us why they arrested him.
Now, obviously, local journalists in Lesotho want to continue with their work unhindered. How do we ensure that they do so without compromising their security?
I think the right of journalists to do their work is part of freedom of expression, and if a journalist's work is interfered with, if a journalist is not able to do their work as they should do, then their right to freedom of expression is being undermined. What we need to do is to remind the Lesotho government of their obligations, including in their own Lesotho constitution and the international human rights obligations to the international covenants that they have signed, which protects the right to freedom of expression. And other African governments and other regional bodies like SADC have a role to play in holding Lesotho accountable.
All right, let's take Dr. Mulawa. You are in Klerksdorp. Welcome.
Mpho le kae?
Re teng Ntate phela jwa?
Re tsogile Ntate Mpho. Ya nna ke ne ke re o mpoletse mo go bomme ba babedi ba gore on the basis that re sale ra romela the contribution ya rona as South Africa. Remember, bearing in mind gore re ra kopa the deputy president a go thusa ko Lesotho. Now it seems like dilo tse a di buang le tse di tlhaga mo TV on the basis, remember on to tlhagise clip, and that clip e bontsha gore ga gona botsiso ko Lesotho. Now rona re le South Africa re thusa yang batho ba ko Lesotho, but at the same time we need gore SADC lona e contribute yang mo, because you can see mo bo me ba ba ditseng fa gore ga go adulisega ko Lesotho ntatwa di go mo le manamane ya tsona.
Dade Mulawa there in Klerksdorp. Well, indeed, how can non-Basotho in Lesotho, or even foreign countries as in SADC as well, how can they assist?
If I wasn't sitting here right now, Mpho, I would probably say the media is the best way for anyone really to know what's happening in Lesotho, for sure. But if journalists are feeling like they cannot tell the story because if they speak against one person or another, then their life is in danger, then we have an even bigger problem. But let us hope, Mpho, that the recent deployment of the experts of SADC that are assessing the situation on the ground will indicate all of these issues that need to be addressed urgently in Lesotho, so that the media can play its role of being the voice of the people, regardless of what that voice is, because that's who we are. We cannot side with anyone, but if we start being labeled, and as you've said, it has happened to me with the previous administration, with the current administration, just because you say something that they do not agree with or they don't feel portrays them in a positive light, then they feel that their people should go for you.
Let's take William. William, you're in Tabazimbi. Welcome.
Paul, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, Ndati.
Yeah, greetings for my two dear sisters there.
Yes.
Paul, you see, there is a saying in English that says you can lead a horse to the river, but you cannot force it to drink. You know, SADC has done everything in their power. They have sent our deputy president there. I think, if you remember well, recently, Tom Thabane won the elections and then he seek exile in South Africa, and then our deputy president was, you know, the Lesotho has got this history of coup d'etat, of overthrowing. So, you know, but my biggest worry is that is this one of you know, of journalists, you know, being harassed for doing their job. But I think Amnesty International have got the responsibility to play there, and then as well as SADC. I don't think SADC, they are too soft on Lesotho. They should just go and tell Lesotho that these are human rights violations, and we cannot accept this as SADC. And that's it. Lesotho is part of SADC, and they must just, I mean, they must just oblige.
William, well, I guess that's the least these bodies can do, unless you would want them to impose sanctions on the basis of violating some of these basic rights.
Amnesty International is calling on the Lesotho government, as I mentioned, to reaffirm its commitment to respect, protect and fulfill the right to freedom of expression.
And then they don't.
If they don't
commit, but then in practicality they do not. We still have Ntakwane.
Then the government is in violation of protecting the rights of journalists in the country.
And then what should happen to them? This is where I want you to be clear with me. What should happen to Lesotho? What will happen? What are the repercussions of troubling this soul not to be able to do her job?
Regional bodies, like you have said, like SADC and the AU and the United Nations, have a responsibility to hold the government of Lesotho accountable. Neighboring countries, including South Africa, also have a responsibility. What we have seen is that SADC released a report in January last year after the Pumapi Commission of Inquiry with a list of recommendations to address the security and political crisis in Lesotho. Up to now, we haven't seen much progress into implementing these recommendations. What needs to happen is that SADC needs to hold the Lesotho authorities accountable for implementing these recommendations, because the only way to address the culture of impunity, and an example of the attack on freedom of expression is a manifestation of this culture of impunity in Lesotho. The only way to address that is to stop it. And the need to demonstrate a clear break from the past cannot be at the expense of additional human rights violations, which is what we have seen in the past 3 months.
Okay. So would you say Lesotho is a dictatorship?
Amnesty International doesn't make any comments about political systems. However, what we do is that where we see human rights violations, we point them out and we make the government aware of their responsibilities towards the people, because we believe that human rights should be the foundation upon which the policy of Lesotho should be based.
So you can't tell me if they're a dictatorship or not?
No, but what I can say is
that... Do they meet the requirements of dictators?
What I can say is that there are human rights violations, a consistent pattern of human rights violations that Amnesty International has documented, and that these violations have occurred with absolute impunity.
Okay. Takwan, for how long are you going to be here?
I'll be here until I get to a point where, one, the government of Lesotho, because we're talking about an incumbent government now, they are the ones who can speak for the country, until the government of Lesotho speaks for the media, until the government of Lesotho condemns attacks on the media, whether it is on social media or in mainstream media or wherever. I'll be here until a point where the administration of, or rather the government, the current government of Lesotho understands that it must be the one that makes people understand the role of the media and how important it is in development.
Well, I think what we should do, we must get the Lesotho High Commissioner to South Africa here on the show in the coming week. Takwan will still be here, so yeah, our producers will try and get hold of the High Commissioner there so that he can come and answer and tell us why our colleagues being troubled there in Lesotho, and we hope he will honor the invite. That was Question Time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, I have a thought.